time now for part 2 of the Gran Turismo All-Stars, and where hopefully this time the clean sweep will be achieved in full swing. We've had a good start so far, as we have managed to sweep the first 5 races, including an absolute nail-biter at Task Course, which I intended to create, by the way, just to pretty much showcase which one of the 2 Nissans was better. And ultimately, the R89 was better than the R92 by a very slender margin. Although then again, we have had a few close races up to this point. Anyway, I mean, Laguna Seca was pretty close, and Task Course was the other instance. Anyway, time now for part 2. As for race 6, we are doing 6 laps of Grand Valley Reverse. So, without further ado, let's begin part 2 of the championship. And of course, if you are enjoying the content and you like what it is I am trying to do around here, then I am trying to reach 750 subscribers before the end of September if possible, maybe sooner. And if you do want to consider supporting me and you like the things it is I try and do around here, then subscribing to me is a good idea, because I am trying to get to 750 subs before the end of September, if possible, maybe even sooner if I can really manage to get a hot streak going, because I'm only going to be here for 10 days in August, so it doesn't give me a lot of time, because I recently got back from one holiday, and in just over a week's time I will be away on another holiday. Or whenever this video gets released, I'm not sure when. But either way, point is, I really want to get to 750 subs before the end of September, at the least. Or if you want to get me there sooner, then that would be deeply appreciated, because I really want to try and get to 750 subscribers before the end of September. That's pretty much my target, and I am now, as recording this, just 8 subs away from that. My sub count, last time I checked, currently stands at 742, although it'll probably be more like 741 or something, I don't know. But either way, if you can get me up to 750 subs by the end of September, then that would be greatly appreciated, as I managed to dive down the inside of the R92 and take over the lead. He was trying to see if he could do the old switcheroo, but he was not successful. And now I am pretty much clear of him. For now. But depending on how long the fight lasts for, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, basically, if you want a go-to car for this event, then, well, basically, unless you plan on doing endurance events before the extreme events, well, you basically need to use the R89. The Nissan R89C is basically your go-to car for both this and the World Championship in this game. If you want a car that is virtually guaranteed to help you win the championship at the least, then this is pretty much your go-to choice, in my opinion. So 2 laps down, as I now have less than a 3-second lead over the R92, and it looks as though I'm steadily building that up, as we're both pretty evenly matched, as I am now at 469 nice miles driven. I figured I would just say that before it fades, because it's going to hit 470 at any moment with the speeds we're travelling here. A little bit wide there, but able to get through, and there it goes. So we've now passed 400 nice miles driven in this thing. And I would say the R92 is keeping me honest. He's not letting me pull away by big margins. He is actually keeping up with me. Something that I never would have said about the Jaguar, because I would have just continued having way too much oversteer on the corner exits, and there would just be no chance for me to really catch up to the R89. Sorry, the R92. This is pretty much the only car out of the Group C prototype stable that really is capable of beating the R92 the way I see things. But at this time at least I just seem to be holding on. And that's probably the best I can really ask for at this point in the race. As I head through the first tunnel, almost clipping the wall there but able to avoid it, and heading through the second tunnel, and now here comes the third tunnel. Although they did recently bring back Gran Valley in GT7, I definitely think the old design is better. That is one thing I will say. That's not to say the redesign is just straight up awful and ugly in every sense. But I will say that it doesn't quite have the same charm as what the original one does. That's not to say I hate the Gran Valley redesign, but I do think, under the circumstances, that the old design just feels much more vibrant, and it feels more like a racetrack that, if it did exist in real life, it would very much be one of those circuit layouts that you would say is very much a driver's track, because of just how much fun it is to drive around these corners. Especially when you're going into these corners at around 170 miles an hour plus, like you are with the prototypes or thereabouts. That could have been costly if I wasn't on it. I mean, I do have a gap over the R92, but I'm not really pulling away from him by much. I think he's just keeping me honest. But at this point, because I am managing to hold on to the lead in an effective manner, that's pretty much the way I want to keep it. As I touch the grass. Well, oh hey, I set a 139.8 Nice. Not bad. In spite of me losing out on a new best lap time, but whatever. Been 5 laps of just keeping the R92 at bay, and that is the way I want to keep it. I'm also pretty sure before this is all over we will surpass the 500 mile mark from what I can see. And I've overshot the tunnel turn. However, in spite of that, I still managed to somehow hold on to the lead. Because I was far enough ahead, and also because it was not a serious mistake. The R92 is catching up again, but as long as I just stay on track, I should be able to fend him off, as the gap has now decreased. I really need to hold on for my life to get this one. So heading through the final hairpin, and on the front straightaway I am going to hold on for 6 wins in a row, in spite of me trying to lose it there at the end, but whatever. We got it done by 3.7 seconds over the R92. Toyota 7th 3rd, Mazda 4th, Bentley 5th, and the R390 GT1 was 6th. So that's going to help the Toyota to hold on to 5th in points, as he now has a 4-point gap over the R390, and I now have a 26 point advantage over the R92. Those are your points after 6 races. And now we can move on to our next one, race 7. So these are your points after 6 rounds. I now have a 26 point lead over the R92, and the Bentley is still 3rd with 20 over the Mazda 787B, the Toyota 7 5th, and the R390 GT1 is still 6th. And now we move on to Suzuka for round 7. And then after this we've got just 3 rounds to go, those taking place at Sonoma, Le Mans, and then to finish it off we have got the Nürburgring. As the Bentley Speed 8 already moves up into 2nd, I immediately clear the R390 with no problems whatsoever, and now clearing the Mazda as well, which is what I was meant to do, and just really threading the needle as I try to clear the AI and I run wide. That probably doesn't surprise me, in all honesty. I mean, the AI were basically just breathing down my neck as we went through the S-curves. There was no way I was going to stay on track with just how close they were. It was just really fucking me up with how close they were. I was inevitably going to run wide. There was no preventing that. And right now, I'm trying to get back in the fight, as I move the Toyota 7 out the way by forcing him into the gravel, and he rejoins and goes behind the R390. A little bit aggressive there, but I think it was probably him who forced me out wide earlier. But then again, I don't think he hit me, so it's fine. I'll admit, it is easy to punt the AI out of the way, but I really do try my best to not do it when I don't have to. And I try to make sure that I keep it clean. But anyway, the 787B and the Bentley Speed 8 go to war, and I am going to do my best to go to war with the R92 as well, who has built up an early lead, but his early lead is not going to last, because I am mowing down the interval, I think, providing I don't make any more mistakes like the one I made before. I really need to keep my car on track from here on out if I'm going to pull this off, as we head through Degner. And through Degner 2 we go. It's a slightly banked corner on the exit, but it is possible to thread the needle if you get it right. And I think I am closing in on the R92. His pace doesn't seem to be causing me to fall away. I do still seem to be behind him, which is what I want. And it looks as though this is going to be another one of those races where we will be in a close battle. As I step on the brakes for 130R and head under the Konami banner at 176 as I head through the Konami chicanes. Konami, by the way, is the name of the company that I think gave us Tamagotchi, if I'm not mistaken. Although I mainly know Konami for giving us the Ridge Racer series. Which, by the way, yes, from the 90s, from basically the early 90s up to the mid-2000s, Ridge Racer basically was the go-to racing game series from Konami at the time. No, he's still ahead of me for now, but I don't feel like I'm being pushed. I feel like there might be an opportunity here for me to maybe force him into a mistake if I get close enough. Oh, he's done it himself. Okay, well, here I go. I'm right behind him now, so this is probably my perfect chance to catch him out. Maybe as we head through Spoon. And heading through 200R, had to step on the brakes slightly so I wouldn't get any oversteer. Not quite able to thread the needle, but I think as we head down the Spoon straightaway, this is where I should thread the needle. Going round the outside on the back straightaway and through 130R, dab of the brakes so I can get through the corner, and I managed to get into the chicanes unscathed. I forced the R92 into a mistake as we got off Dagner, and then that was basically when I knew I was going to take the lead. And that's precisely what I have done. I just needed to stay calm, focus on my race, and try to force him into a mistake. And eventually he did get forced into a mistake, which allowed me to thread the needle as he touched the gravel, and now we lead. And now it's just a matter of holding on. He's led me up to this point in the race, but right now, there are no room for mistakes. I really need to make sure I pull this off as we head through Degner again. Just gotta make sure I keep my car on the track and keep it about as razor sharp as it can be. And the R92 has run wide again, so I think that's pretty much handed victory over to me from what I can see. This is definitely something that's pretty much been that's pretty much been handed to me on a plate, because he ran wide again on the exit of Dagna 2. So heading through Spoon, and now onto the Spoon straightaway once again, also known as the Suzuka backstretch. It's one of very few racetracks in the world that really does have a figure of 8 circuit style design. We have 1 lap to go as we head through the chicanes, and now heading through, I would honestly call that Fairground Corner because of the amusement park that's right next to it, and I now have a 4-second lead over the R92. Something that I don't think would have been achieved in either the Jaguar or the Ford GT for that matter. I would have given it a go either way if I really felt like I wanted to, but, well, because the heat was just kind of putting me off and I was just very disoriented after I did the first half initially, that was kind of why I just wasn't really bothered to continue it, because I didn't feel like the video segment was good enough, and I also didn't feel like I was really that interested in making it work. But this time around, however, I am very much making it work, as my Group C weaponizer has pretty much managed to give me the lead. Am I going to hit 500 miles before this is all over? I don't think I will, but I'll definitely be close, the way I see things. So I'm now well clear of the R92, and in spite of me having that mistake early on, I ultimately beat the R92 to the line. And I think this is where I will pass the 500 mile mark, as the Mazda has overtaken the Bentley for third, and that's the way that battle finishes. So the Nissan R390 is 5th, and the Toyota 7 finished in last, after I kind of forced him off at Spoon Corner, but I don't normally intend to do these things. I try my best not to, but from time to time these racing deals happen. So a 30-point advantage over the R92 now, and it pretty much looks like that's not going to change. But anyway, there we go. 7 rounds down, and now a 30-point advantage over the R92, as we have a battle hotting up for 3rd place in points. Actually, yeah, I will get my replay here now that I think about it. It's kind of something I want to do here. Although then again, I recently... Actually no, I won't save the replay here. I'll save it at either Sonoma or Le Mans. Probably Sonoma. Anyway, on to the next one. As we are running the stock car course, and less than 2 miles of driving, so this is going to be pretty easy. But we're actually driving the NASCAR variant of Sonoma Raceway. Previously, Infineon Raceway and also previously known as Sears Point Raceway, before they renamed it to Sonoma. And kind of forcing the Mazda 787B through there, and giving him quite a few bumps, I might add. Very much trading paint with him. Something I would not be able to do in real life, but either way, there we are. And currently blocked by the Bentley. Really trying to see if I can make my way through. And forcing the Toyota out wide. Kind of had to do that, because if I didn't, then the R92 would continue pulling away. And we definitely passed 500 miles driven at the end of Suzuka, there's no question about that. So 3.3 seconds is the advantage to the Nissan. Can I catch up to him? That's the real question. I think I can, but we'll wait and see. As it is only a 2-second gap, and it looks as though I should have a clean shot of passing him. Or so it would seem. So the gap is now 1.5 seconds. I can definitely say I have had to push it a bit to keep myself in the fight. And I've gone too deep. Although at least I can say the tyre barrier did not cost me too much time. Because, well, vehicle damage physics, they're still not a thing in the GT games. And they wouldn't officially be a thing in the GT games until GT5. Because that was the first game in the series to have damage physics. Or vehicle damage physics, I should say. Even though they weren't exactly the sorts of physics that quite literally damage the car heavily, as it would have done in real life. And yep, some cones have been knocked over, and the R92 just absolutely swiped me from that right hand side. He just absolutely licked me from that right hand side when I was trying to pass him. I have no idea how he held on to the lead in that instance, but I mean, he was going for it. I mean, he quite literally licked me from the right hand side. And somehow he came away with the race lead, because the sand trap was narrow enough for him to actually hold on to his position. Which to me is actually quite jarring, but at the same time, because I was inevitably going to take the lead away from him anyway, we really seem to be putting on quite the show here, because of just how evenly matched we are. I mean, we're both in equally good equipment, and I think it's fair to say that the Mazda probably is going to take over third place in points over the Bentley Speed 8 from what I can see. He probably is going to pass him before we get to Le Mans, which will be where the Mazda is at a disadvantage, but I reckon that battle is going to go right down to the wire, from what I can see. Which means it will go all the way down to the Nürburgring. But anyway, I have the lead, I am very much holding on to the lead, and I am just steadily pulling away from the R92, which is what I want to do. As we are now well over 500 miles driven. I think I was on 373 miles when I started this. So up to this point now, if my calculations are correct, I have now driven a total of 138 miles up to this point of the championship. I don't know how many miles it's going to be at the end, but I think it is going to be somewhere near enough to about 550 miles. But at this time at least, I seem to be doing pretty well for myself. And that's pretty much the way I want to keep it. So, 6 laps are now complete, as I have now set 3 new best lap times in a row, I think. Or at the very least, 2 new best lap times. I now have an advantage of less than 6 seconds over the R92. It looks like that gap is now steadily growing. And at this point, in spite of me having my battles with the R92, I do seem to be in the position that is successfully holding him off. Which at this point is what I want. As we head through the hairpin, as we head through the carousel for the second to last time, and we now begin our last lap here at Sonoma. White flag, 1 lap to go. Last lap of the third to last race. I don't know what the word is though. But either way, we have pretty much driven practically flawlessly here at Sonoma once we took the lead. And then as soon as we held on to it, we basically just stayed here. And there we go. And a few tenths off my best lap time, but that's okay, because I won by a country mile over most of the competition. A 9-second victory over the R92, and the Bentley does manage to hold on to third ahead of the Mazda. But that battle is probably the only one that's really noteworthy, because I think every other position at this point is virtually settled or near enough to settled. But we do have 2 battles, one for 5th and the other one for 3rd. 80 points to me and 46 points to the R92. So at this point, we've practically got the championship locked up, regardless of what happens from here. And so, I am going to save my replay because I already have replays saved at both Le Mans and Nürburgring. And so there we go. Hard to believe it's now been 94 episodes, but here we are. I also split these up into halves because I don't want these uploads to take hours on end to just upload like the 1000 miles segments did. So, 2 races to go, as we are now heading over to Le Mans for 2 laps, and then after that we've got 2 laps of Nürburgring. Don't need to qualify, we pretty much know what we have to do here. This is the modern day Le Mans that we are driving, with the chicanes. I think this could very well be where the Bentley does ultimately beat the Mazda, because the Bentley is faster than the Mazda in terms of top speed. I figured I'd just mention that now. But anyway, here we are at the circuit of 24 hours. And already the Mazda is trying to clear the R390. They do trade some paint, but it's pretty clean from what I can see. And I do manage to get through there cleanly with almost no problems, as I had a slight moment of oversteer there on that corner exit. But anyway, passing the Bentley now for P3. I'd imagine the Toyota is somewhere up here. Yes, he is. And hitting a top speed of 237 down the first Mulsanne straight, and heading through the chicane now. The Toyota 7 is pretty fast in terms of its acceleration, but I reckon we have got a few deeds to settle here. And thankfully this is only 2 laps long, which means this is not going to be a blowout win, if the win happens. So it looks as though the Toyota 7 is going to hold on to 5th place in the standings because of his raw speed. And we're now heading on to what I think is the 4th Mulsanne straight, as I take over the lead. This track is mainly dependent on engine power, but there's also plenty of cornering to keep you busy as well. As we now head through Indianapolis, and now heading up to Arnage. The 2 sharp 90-degree corners that we basically had through, as we now head up through Maison Blanche, and now we have got the Porsche curves ahead of us. Looks like this is going to be another battle between me and the R92. Another very much high-speed battle that will decide which of our 2 cars emerges victorious. The R92 has only beaten this car once, and that was during the Hong Kong race in the GT World Championship. Although since it was the only race I had to win from the GT World Championship, I pretty much sweeped all the others, and I'm forced into the sand trap. There wasn't really anything I could do about that. He kind of forced me there. I chose not to give him payback. I just decided to pay him back the responsible way by, well, just giving him the old switcheroo. And He's pretty aggressive at the moment. So it looks like this battle is going to be far from settled until we get to the checkered flag. This is very much a sprint race from what I can see. But of course, when it comes to championships, they always tend to be marathons, never sprints. But it looks as though with me getting the better corner exit, I have ultimately broken away from him on the Mulsanne. As we head through the first chicane, and now it looks like at this point, like both of us have pretty much got our positions settled and done. A little bit wide through there, but again able to not have too many problems regarding understeer or oversteer. So right now, I would say our ride is looking pretty good. As I am steadily nipping away from the R92 once again. This is definitely a well-balanced car from what I can see. In spite of me taking most of my wear in the rear tyres, this car is pretty well balanced from what I can see. Just in terms of its overall pace, and also the fact that this car basically is the kryptonite of the R92. I did have to lose a few times before I eventually made this choice, but it looks as though it is pretty much going to be 9 out of 10. As long as I stay on track, I have pretty much got this race well in hand. And it looks like Nürburgring will more or less be the same, because I know that's where the AI will struggle with tyre wear, if I remember correctly. But anyway, there we go. 9 out of 10 races won. Or 9 out of 9 races won is what I should say. And, oh, the Mazda did get past the Bentley. Well, looks like those two are going to be tied heading into Nürburgring to resolve which one of those two is better. But considering most of the competition is Japanese, okay, so that's what we have. So it is 38 points to the Nissan, and the Bentley is just 1 point ahead of the Mazda. So we have got a battle on our hands between the Bentley Speed 8 and the Mazda 787B. Will it be the Group C sweep, or will it be two Group C cars with one LMP1 car? We shall see. But anyway, there we go. Excuse me. Okay, this is the way things look. So heading into Nürburgring, it is 1 point between the Toyota 7 and the Nissan R390, and it is also 1 point between the Mazda and the Bentley. First and second, they're pretty much sorted out at this point, but the rest of the field, we're still waiting for confirmation. And I think we'll probably reach, I would say, 560 miles driven by the time we're done with this. So effectively, by the end of this, we will have driven less than 190 miles. Compared to what we did in the World Championship. Which thankfully is a bit less. And I know the AI will struggle with tyre wear here because when I did this before, that was ironically one of the deciding factors of who emerged on top in this race and who didn't. I mean, first and second at this point, they've pretty much been sorted out. But the rest of the field, well, we're still waiting to be sure. But at this time, as I give the Mazda a little bump there, trying to see if I can clear the AI cleanly here, and not force them into any mistakes. I was a little aggressive there, dipping to the inside, but because of how narrow the Nürburgring is, I kind of had to force myself through, or else I just wasn't going to get out of there, basically. But either way, I get through it. And now I nose my way around the Bentley and keep it together, which is what I'm supposed to do. These battles have been closer than I thought they were going to be, but I know I'm going to catch up to the R92 eventually, because that's pretty much how I have been able to develop my winning tactics. I imagine once the Mazda clears the R390, he probably is going to pass the Bentley for this one, from what I can see. Normally when there are 1 point intervals between the AI, they often get decided in the final race over who finishes on the podium and who doesn't. I mean, personally, I want the Bentley to do it, but at the same time, I'm also wondering if whether he will actually do it. That's pretty much the logical way of thinking about this, if you want my opinion on the matter. And the gap is now up to 3.1 seconds, but straight line speed, pretty much got the afterburners on, even though I don't have any afterburners or nitrous. And right there, I was trying to see if I could clear him, but he continued going foot to the floor, and basically he's pretty much getting the elbows out where I currently can't. So heading up to the carousel, don't think I'm really going to pass him here, but either way it's fine because I get a better corner exit, and as a result I almost clear him. There was nothing I could really do there to get out of the grass. The Nürburgring is practically one of the hardest tracks you can drive, whether you're a racing driver or a sim racing driver. It is an incredibly hard task to produce a clean lap around here. And there is a reason why they call this place the Green Hell. It's not one of my personal favourite tracks per se, But I definitely understand why, compared to the amount of racing it had before, I am glad to say that it's only very few racing series that actually come here these days. And one of them, of course, is for the annual Nürburgring 24-hour endurance, which I don't know how long that's been going on for, but I do know that's one of the key events that features Nürburgring, Nordschleife and the GP circuit put together. And in spite of me running wide through that corner, I think I'm actually going to short shift here for a moment, just so I am able to be prepared for the sudden turbulence. And just like that, I just blew past him. On the back straightaway, I quite literally blew past him. And I am definitely going to pass 550 miles before this is all said and done. And I somehow managed to keep my car on track, stepping on the brakes at just the right time, and it takes me over 6 minutes to set my first lap. Around the Nürburgring. Although this track is known as the Green Hell because of all the trees, it is also known as very much a graveyard when it comes to punishing for mistakes. Because the amount of people who have quite literally driven and died here for nearly the last century that the Nürburgring has been open for, there have been, I would say, at least 100 fatalities over the years, possibly more, depending on just how many people have raced here. This is definitely what I would call the racing cemetery when it comes to punishing drivers for mistakes or mechanical failures at high speeds such as these. They're practically the sorts of speeds that you know are virtually unsurvivable. I think there is also a scene in the Gran Turismo movie itself that actually does feature a fatal crash at the Nürburgring. That is actually something that did happen. Even though I haven't watched the Gran Turismo movie yet, so I don't know for sure, but I did notice there was one scene in one of the trailers that did showcase that. But anyway, yeah, there is that. And once again, I am now well clear of the Nissan because my car is out in open air, which is pretty much where it needs to be. And having a slight moment of oversteer, and I'm in the wall. Yeah, had to happen sooner or later. I probably was going too fast to head through one of those corners anyway. I think that was just going to happen either way, where I was going to be a little too fast, and inevitably one of the bumps or yumps was just going to catch me out the way it did. It kind of becomes inevitable when you've driven hundreds if not thousands of laps around this joint like I have. And God knows, it does not get any fucking easier to set a lap around here. It's about as punishing as Mount Panorama when you make a mistake here. I've said that before, and I figured I would say it again because this place, a lot like Mount Panorama, which arguably is considered by some sim racers to be one of the best racetracks in the world. This, a lot like Mount Panorama, is very much a track that punishes mistakes and punishes them pretty much like a capital punishment. Like it quite literally does kill your car when you make a mistake here, and there's practically no saving you from the walls. If you either make a mistake, run wide, or just have something break on your car. All of those instances have happened. And I can certainly say that, as a racing fan, if there's one thing that you'll inevitably see at one point in your lifetime as a racing fan, you'll inevitably see accidents. Although thankfully, these days, most of them are non-fatal. And that annoying notification just appeared on my TV again. And yep, that godforsaken notification forced me into the fucking gravel. And the Mazda is now up to second, so I think the Nissan must have been having tyre issues, although that was ironically what happened before. There was actually a battle before between, I think it was the R92 and the Mazda 787B, where it was the Mazda that took home second in the point standings over, I think it was the R92, but I don't know for sure. But either way, there was definitely a battle between the two that was ultimately decided in that manner. And I think that means the Mazda is going to take home third in points. Meanwhile, the Bentley is going to finish P4 in the point standings. So it looks as though it is going to be Group C supremacy, as we have now passed 560 miles driven. And almost making the same mistake again that I made many times before at the end of that straightaway. But anyway, there we go. In spite of my mistakes, it's a clean sweep for the GT All-Stars. And in the end of that, I think the Mazda is going to get third over the Bentley, as I won in the end by 12 seconds. And it looks as though his tyre longevity benefited him because he's going to take third in points. And the Toyota is going to hold off the Nissan by a single point as well. So these are your final point standings. Clean sweep to me, 55 to the R92, 35 to the Mazda 787B, 34 to the Bentley, 19 to the Toyota 7, and 18 to the Nissan R390 GT1. A battle for third that went right to the wire, but eventually the Mazda emerged with third. And there we go. We've got a bonus of 250,000 credits as a result of us sweeping the championship and also scoring the overall winnings as well. But there we go. Oh, the Nissan only scored 17. I refer to the R390 now, not the R92. 100, 55, 35, 34, 19, and 17 are your final point scores for the GT All-Stars. And as I have been recording this now for just over an hour, we get this done. And now we are going to get a look at our new prize car, which I think is something good because we get this. We get the only McLaren in this game. The BMW McLaren F1 GTR. And also it's the long tail version. Also a car that ironically featured in GT4 Prologue as well. I might consider driving that car again if I really want to. But anyway, took me a few failed decisions to get there, but eventually I did manage to sweep the GT All-Stars. And next up, we have the Dream Car Championship. But there we go. Another one bites the dust. Now let's get a look at our next car, as we are now 53.6% complete with the game, and my win ratio has dropped. It is now 86.4%, and we've now got over 24,400 points. And I now have nearly 120 cars in my garage. So let's check our McLaren. And here it is. V12 engine, 600 horsepower, and also a car that won at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in its class, after the original F1 GTR ironically won the race in what was very much based on a wet race, more or less. But anyway, there we go. My voice nearly gave way there. But there we go. GT All-Stars is now done. And next up will be the Dream Car Championship, coming in the next episode.